pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please show all members of council present. Up next, we have a review of the minutes from the June 3rd, 2026 meeting and the June 8th, 2026 regular meetings. Does council have any questions, comments, concerns regarding the minutes? Nope. Hearing.
Can I make two announcements remembering some citizens that just passed? I just wanted to take a moment and ask for a moment of silence for two community leaders who have just passed. Recently, Angelo Zambetti served this council for a couple of terms, and he passed away a week ago Saturday, I think. And Mike Stonecipher, another community leader who was very active with the Legion and youth sports, and also passed away. So if we could just pause for a moment and remember the service they gave our community and Thanksgiving. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
No problem. Proceeding forward from review of minutes, going on to public hearing resolution 2026-03, countywide water resource element. I'm opening that up to public hearing. It will close at the end of this meeting. Anybody is free to step up and make comments regarding the countywide water resource element. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to make a comment regarding that? Sounds good. Proceeding forward. Up next, we have reception of delegation, Mountain Brook Farm request to pursue a developer rights and responsibilities agreement. If you guys want to, are they?
So this evening, I'll just set it up a little bit. This evening is really about whether or not we want to enter into a DARA with the developer. The developer's full team couldn't be here this evening. Kevin Wingate, one of the team members, is. If there are any general questions. But tonight is really about consideration of moving forward with the DARA or not, but not the actual details of the development or contents of it.
So do you want to explain, I guess, what the DARA is to council? Again, it's a brand new council, so we'll start there.
So a development rights and responsibilities agreement essentially lays out each party's obligation. That is, what the city is committing to for the developer, and then also what the developer is going to do that is typically going to be above and beyond what the city code requires. In this case, we've been talking, and I'm not going to get into a lot of details, but the big thing that we've been focusing on is that the comprehensive plan shows a segment of the Taneytown bypass running through this property. And so the development plan incorporates that into the project, while the road doesn't really serve any homes directly. So that's something that, for example, would be a public benefit that we would include in a development rights and responsibilities agreement, that the road needs to traverse the entire property, for example. The agreement can also get into the specific number of units that are going to be developed and at what point the city will commit the water and sewer capacity to the project, things of that nature. So generally, when we enter into a development like this, while it's not a hard and fast requirement per state code, we like there to be a public benefit that's beyond just a development in general. So if we were, for example, in this case, hopefully getting construction of a road that's a much needed piece of infrastructure, or perhaps the developer would develop a production well on the site or something of that nature, or donate acres for parkland, things like that could be addressed in a development rights and responsibilities agreement. But the first step is for the developer to petition the council, which there's a letter of that request in your packet. And they have done that. They have provided a draft DARA that's under review, not ready for prime time. But so this is basically the formal start of the process. While we've been having conversations at a staff level, council has not officially decided whether or not you want to pursue a DARA. So that's what Monday night's decision is about.
So I'll open up to any questions from council regarding that.
I've got a couple of things, being the planning commission rep. First, I am not particularly opposed to a DARA on this one, as long as it comes out favorably. When it was presented to Planning Commission that the bypass might not be completed, it was universally said by Planning Commission, then we don't need the development doesn't need to happen. But my question is, I understand on O'Brien Road, Street, something. Avenue, there we go. There was a bridge that was supposed to be in something similar to this, but we ended up having to eat that bridge because the developer never did it. What are our protections to make sure that this is actually carried through?
That is certainly something that could be addressed in the DARA, that perhaps, and just thinking out loud, that, you know, perhaps there's an escrow account set up, and, you know, for every lot that's developed, a fee is paid into that escrow account to cover a portion of the cost of the stream crossing, for example. That way, if something happens, and, you know, hopefully this wouldn't be the case, but if something happens that the development stops, you know, midstream, that the city would have the ability to tap those funds to complete the, I guess, the expensive piece of the infrastructure, which would be the stream crossing. So that is something that ADARA could address as well, in order to avoid, and in that particular situation, certainly I think the city did learn a lesson from that, by, at that point, the phasing plan for the development left the most expensive piece of infrastructure towards the end, and then the developer sold the remaining phases of the project. So then a new developer came in, and the number of lots that were left didn't support building the bridge, basically. So certainly the city learned a lesson from that, and you know, we weren't necessarily able to control the sale of the property, but that's something that, again, you know, more recent projects, we've made sure where there's a stream crossing that's more than just a little culvert, that crossing was addressed in the first phase of the project. So if the developer did decide to walk away later, that we got the expensive piece covered.
And that's really my only caution for the rest of council is basically if the majority of the infrastructure is not completed, and we're left with, say, phase one of the development without phase two, without the stream crossing, it effectively kills trying to get the bypass done through that section.
You're exactly right, Harry, and my reaction was that the DAR was premature until that was settled. We passed a resolution months ago about not permitting anybody to develop until that bypass issue was saved, and then we immediately said, well, except for you, it's okay, but we'll look the other way. Not really, but the essence was the same. And I guess my way of thinking is, if I would support a DARA, and I think it's something that's necessary. It's good for the city and it's good for the developer. But it has to be on our terms. And the sample that came out from the builder wasn't on our terms. I found a lot of things wrong with it when I read it, and I didn't thoroughly read the 20 pages, but I cursory looked at it and found a lot of problems with it without having to read it thoroughly. So I'd be very cautious about moving forward with a DAR until we get some answers to some of the things we're concerned about.
So I understand, engage. What we're talking about now is engaging in talks
Of a DARA.
towards a DARA,
Yes.
right? So like
There is no
it's
DARA
not-
currently.
It's not. It wouldn't be committing us to anything. So I think that speaks to what you're saying. Like this to me has always sounded like this is us engaging in negotiations, and if the the negotiations don't come out on our side, then we can tell them to kick rocks, right? So like, but I think we have to do the DAR to see if we can even get to that place.
Well, that's what, this is basically just council giving the go-ahead of whether they'll even entertain engaging into a DARA. Because council could always just say, we're not interested in a DARA, and, we could avoid the attorneys going back and forth and spending the money on that. So again, the question that's being posed that council has to think on going towards Monday is whether they want to entertain entering a DARA. If the answer is, yeah, let's go ahead and start the negotiations on a DARA, that gives our attorney the green light to go ahead and go back and forth on the DARA. And then council will see the proposed and go from there, essentially.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not I'm not opposed in spirit to some form of a DARA on this, because it's needed now that we have the deferment in place for the bypass. But again, echoing Councilman McCarron, it definitely needs to be as ironclad as it can get.
Especially on phase 2.
Yeah, to make sure, because again, just to reiterate, when it came before Planning Commission, there was talk of phase 1 only. The entire Planning Commission unanimously said, then we don't want to do the development. So that's where Planning Commission was.
Yeah, so my thought is that we should at least engage in the negotiations and see where we land. I'm in agreement with what you guys are saying, and I've spoken to the mayor on the side too, and I have additional concerns that I'd like to be involved in these negotiations, to have them addressed too, because in my mind, it's not just the bypass that we need, but there are other financial considerations that need to happen in there to make sure that this thing is actually creating value in the long run. And it's not a long-term loss to the city because we have too many infrastructure costs and the tax base can't support it. But all that said, we don't even know if we can land in a mutually agreeable position unless we engage in these negotiations. If it comes, like I said, in my mind, if it comes back and it's not to our satisfaction, then we don't have to commit to anything. So that's my thought.
Yep, and that is correct. Again, there is no committal by council to enter into the engagement of this. Any additional comments, questions, concerns before we proceed forward?
So just a little bit more information on the process. So when we have negotiated a document that we think protects the city and meets the developer's needs as well, it will come back before council. It's also going to need to be reviewed by the Planning Commission. Now, the Planning Commission only gets to rule on whether or not it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. So they don't delve into like the nitty-gritty details of whether they think we're getting the right amount of fees or this or that, but really just that it supports the advancement of the comprehensive plan or not.
So we can get into that nitty-gritty, correct?
Right. That's right. So the agreement is between the council and the developer. But Planning Commission does get to weigh in as far as the, goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. So similar to some of our zoning ordinances where the, commission has a chance to review them before you pass them, similar scenario there.
Yeah, we did accessory dwelling units at the last meeting, which is coming up today, so.
I heard you had some spicy thoughts about, was it that or was it something else?
I don't know, I usually have spicy thoughts at Planning Commission.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns before I proceed forward? Hearing none, proceed.
I was gonna say,
Wait, yeah, don't.
Oh,
Mayor, can I speak?
yeah, that's fine.
I'm Kevin Wingate, part of the development team for Mountain Brook. What I want to just clarify is that the way I understand it, what Jim, I think, explained, is that the DAR is simply just opening the door for our discussion. The text in the DAR is just a draft. No one's obligated to that text. We'll all sit down, we'll have work sessions and work through it, so it's the benefit of both parties. Councilman Meade mentioned that, there was, I guess, a rumor that we only want to do phase 1. Our goal is to do it all. We need to do it all for revenue to make all this work. That bypass is an expensive infrastructure that we need, all the units to make that happen. In addition, brought up about the culvert, if only phase one is done and nothing's contributed to the culvert, whoever develops phase two, you know, that's a burden. I think we had conversations with Jim and his staff early on that we're open to working something out, that during the construction of phase two, or phase one rather, you know, contributions would be made to a fund, capital improvement fund or some kind of fund that would be directly associated with that culvert. So when that time comes, there's already funds there to help pay for that cost. So as phase two proceeds, you know, it's not 100% of the cost is phase two because phase one benefits. So I just want to share that. I don't want to get into the weeds because we can do that at later sessions, but I just wanted to share that of our intent. Our goal is to do the whole thing.
Sounds good, thank you. Any additional comments, questions, concerns before I proceed forward? In the audience as well now. I'm not seeing anything, so I'm proceeding forward. Councilmember statement regarding conflicts of interest on agenda items. Do any council members need to make a statement today? Hearing none, I am proceeding forward. Public comment pertaining to agenda and non-agenda items. To comment on a specific agenda item after it has been discussed by the council, please sign up with the city clerk and you will be asked to come forward at the appropriate time. Who would like to start public comment?
Mayor and Council, Keith Reed, property owner, Westminster, Maryland. Just here to talk about the removal of the parking meters. This is just something that is there no interest in keeping business in the downtown that we've eliminated parking meters? It's just, in the past, when we've talked about having this conversation, there's been public meetings to get input and feedback. And in this particular case, they just disappeared. Talking about businesses in town, and we have no economic development employee with the town. We have numerous empty stores that are sitting. 107 East Baltimore Street has been sitting empty since the end of May 2025. So for 14 months, it sat there with no activity. 30 East Baltimore, which is a brand new facility, that storefront is sitting there empty. You got 1 York Street that's sitting there empty. You know, businesses are in business to make money, and we need the Taneytown to, you know, not block up all the parking in the front of the stores. I'm getting off a script here, I'm sorry. I've talked to 3 people that watch these meetings and so on and so forth, and nobody saw where this was discussed about removing parking meters. So if somebody can give me the months or the dates that was done so we can go back and watch that, because they didn't see it happening. The Carroll County Times paper yesterday says this is to reduce barriers, and it has not been enforced since November of last year. But the residents didn't know it wasn't being enforced because the meters were still getting filled with coins because the officers were saying they were out of order and they had to go empty them. So it's one thing to say that it wasn't enforced, so you don't need them because nobody was parking there. It's another thing for the residents to know that it wasn't being enforced. Is there going to be a 2-hour limit? That's a question. And how will it be enforced? That's another question. There was a car and truck parked across the street here, the only 2 places right in front of Stonehouse Cakery, for 3 days after this started. And I'm not saying they never moved, but when I would look at them in the morning, take pictures, look in the afternoon, they was still there. So, and the other question is, if it's 2-hour limit, how do we know where the 2-hour limit starts and where does it end? You know, because up in front, going up York Street, there was no meters down, you know, so it's just very confusing on if there's going to be, and hopefully, you know, something will get resolved that there can be at least a 2-hour limit. I don't understand why we wouldn't have put a sign in when we took the meter out before we patched the sidewalk, and now go back and unpatch, drill the hole and put the meter in. But anyway, with a lot of work and being blessed, and we've been very fortunate to be able to have off-street parking for most of our properties. Not all of them, but it's very convenient. But if there's no parking meters, there's people that are just going to park right out front and can walk right in the front door instead of walking up the alley or around back, just like parking back here in the back. Everyone doesn't think like a business person. When I would show apartments, I would say to potential tenants, you know, if you're unloading your laundry or unloading your groceries or going to the laundromat, park in the front, go in, do your thing, and then move it to a back parking place so you wasn't occupying spaces that was used for the businesses. And customers go into businesses for an hour or two, residents park for much longer periods of time. So, you know, again, you're going to the stone house, you're going to get a haircut, you're going to the convenience store, whatever. I keep hearing about a survey that was taken and it was decided that people didn't want them, but I haven't talked to anybody that was asked about a survey or an online survey, so I don't know if anybody can share any light on that. And then you know, I was on Economic Development Committee for 12 or 15 years, many moons ago, and the main subject was always how do we get more businesses on the first floor, eliminate apartments, get more businesses so we can have a town like Sykesville, Mount Airy, and these kind of places were thriving with businesses. And then last but not least, and this is just a fact of life, you know, the paper said that we're going to keep parking for the city employees that are here for 6 or 8 hours, and you got customers that are going to walk from gosh only knows where to get to a shop. Maybe we should have reserved parking for every business owner out along the street so that they could park out on the street also. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Who would like to go next for public comment?
Good evening, I'm Brandy Bollinger, business owner. We own residential properties in town. We own several business properties in town. Some of them are occupied, some of them are vacant. As a small town, many of you, if not all of you here, and the viewers tonight know we proudly support the Second Amendment and operate a Main Street gun store. As we celebrate the 250th birthday of America, we also believe soundly in the First Amendment, all of it. Today, the press interviewed businesses with a purpose. Not to share Main Street's entire story, but allegedly just the part that's supported downtown through current meter removal. Despite the mayor and other business owners sending ABC News our way to talk about opposition to meter removal or alternatives to that process, they chose not to come down and interview us because it was an opposition. We find that incredibly limiting in what information we're sharing with people. So thankfully, as we celebrate the freedom of speech, we're here tonight to share the rest of that with you. So the last time I stood before you, I did so as your Main Street chair. I proudly still support that same Main Street. So a core principle of modern parking management is that the most valuable parking space is not the one occupied the longest, but the one that serves the most people throughout the day. These values are measured mostly by turnover and access. Former Mayor McCarron, his views while he was mayor have aligned with traditional Main Street parking models, such as one space with one long-term vehicle in it serves exactly one person in an 8-hour span. That same space with 2 vehicles per hour and that turnover serves 16 people in that same 8-hour span. So what do we do with this information? Well, the City Council has vocalized that they understand the importance of key Main Street values, to include parking. We know you guys understand it. We've seen your positions on parking. So we look at the historical discussion. In 2018, Taneytown had already evaluated removing downtown parking meters. According to the former city manager, Henry Hine, the city previously removed meters or discussed it, and downtown businesses requested that they be restored. There was a reason for that. Business owners' primary concern was parking turnover. So that's what we're here tonight to talk about. After meters were removed, employees and residents reportedly occupied prime Kernside spaces for extended periods. What that did was reduced convenient parking availability for customers. There's more facts to that, but we're going to keep it short tonight since that's not on the primary agenda. So parking turnover matters. Why? One, it supports local business where direct access directly affects sales and foot traffic. That's what this council has told business owners is important. We don't see all of you every day in our store. We've never seen some of you in our store. We truly believe, though, that you understand that parking is an important part of the everyday business that we do. Some of you are business owners in this town, and you understand how important the parking is and how that affects your business. So the perception of parking availability, where customers seek convenient, visible, and predictable parking. That means that when our customers come in, they know what they're going to find. They know when they visit your store that they're going to be a repeat customer if they know those things exist. A reduction of traffic congestion. We talk about traffic congestion a lot in Taneytown, and it doesn't often come up with meters. But customers that are continually looking for parking are circling. They're driving around the corner again. They're driving down the same street again. They're creating more traffic looking for a convenient place than they are even if there's one space available that they feel that they're not able to access easily. Protection of the most valuable spaces. This is where I think we always get hung up. So spaces in front of businesses are usually the most valuable parking assets in a downtown district. Often, they're reserved for short-term users while encouraging employees, residents, and long-term visitors to utilize secondary parking locations when they're available. So we've talked about this a lot, and we feel that I'm going to go into the next little piece too. When we talk about economic development, we talk about Main Street America. Taneytown is part of Main Street America, and these values align very solidly together. I know former Mayor McCarron also, his vision aligned with this very, very similarly, is that convenient customer parking is a key to downtown vitality. So we've got people with primary businesses that are short-term parking. People are coming in, they're coming out. We're utilizing those spaces to the best of our ability. They are getting deliveries that are coming in and coming out, and we're leaving room for them to do that so that businesses can not only survive, but they're thriving. So when we take that away and we say we're going to allow residential and business owner parking and visitor parking for long-term periods of time in front of those same businesses, we've now cut off access. We have now said we're going to prioritize those individuals over the businesses that operate and give back to our same community on a daily basis. And trust me when I say your businesses that operate here right now are tiny but mighty. They give a lot to this town, whether or not everyone sees it or anybody even knows it. They give a lot. So what we need to do is focus on looking at that limited parking and looking at the active management of it. So since 2018 and likely before, employee parking for extended periods of time near businesses, residents occupying those prime spaces, and reduced customer access have troubled Main Street. Utilization of something such as parking permits, meters, sensors, enforcement programs, all of these things allow us to continue access and turnover. Those are the important pieces of this. So I'm going to remind you tonight what your positions are, because I feel like removing the meters without talking to businesses, because I assure you, not a single council member in front of me ever came to our business and said, hey, we're going to remove the meters this week. What do you think? And I'm going to say it again. Not a single person before me on this council put the town in front of their own individual self and said, I'm going to walk down my Main Street and ask the businesses what they think. Because regardless of who you may have talked to, it wasn't everybody, which really means that you missed a lot. So in November, we suspended the meters for the holidays. Mayor Miller, you weren't in favor of suspending them permanently without notices to businesses or residents. It's on public record. They're still suspended today with removal in July. That's not honoring what you told the city or the businesses you were going to do. In December, Mr. Mead, you were in favor of sensor-based monitoring versus meters. Businesses were okay with that. Businesses understood that. What we don't understand is that you agreed to remove the meters, and there's no discussion about those sensors yet, whether it's in phase 1 or phase 3 of the parking meter discussion. Those meters were removed. And you never talked to any of us about why that change happened from December 3rd until now. Nobody got to weigh in on that. Nick, in December also, you said removal isn't going to be an effective method. But why now are the meters removed? Why did you change your mind and change your position without ever having met with the people that it impacts the most before making a decision like that? February 4th, the state of the city addressed the parking strategy, economic development, and consistent communication with the business community. I haven't heard from anybody. I haven't heard from any of you. We haven't talked about anything that happened at State of the City since February. We haven't discussed parking. We haven't discussed economic development. We for sure haven't discussed parking strategy, not even in passing. In March, the parking meter projects were said that they're going in the fiscal year 27 budget. A pilot program was being considered at City Hall and the post office that may have the potential to cost $30,000. After speaking today with the mayor, it seems like that was changed to a removal of the meters without any data. A question that I have for a later night and a later discussion and a bigger discussion is, what is that data? Who did you talk to? What did it contain? What were the parameters of those discussions? I think the businesses in the city deserve those answers. Quotes were supposed to be submitted in April. There's no evidence of those quotes in subsequent meetings. So again, businesses in the city were left out of discussions that I think they deserve to be in because they're important. In April, Mayor Miller reminded the council that parking meters would be included in the fiscal year 27 budget. And yet now when we ask, we're talking about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Maybe we'll get signs that limit parking. Maybe we won't. But again, there's no transparency on any of those issues because there's no communication. There hasn't been since you agreed to communicate in February. In April, Mayor Miller recommended to the council to run a test before any meters were removed to determine if removal would exacerbate the problem that we have with parking. The meters were removed, and the test was to see if it disturbed the sidewalk, to see if removing the meters disturbed the sidewalk. Not whether or not we could gauge access or turnover to businesses to help these businesses thrive and survive, but to determine if we liked the way the brick came out and went back in. From May 6th to June 8th, there were no meeting minutes or discussion available on parking meters. So it's almost like you've forgotten, which is why I think it's so important to remind you what you promised your city. These are the things you promised your businesses. These are your words that we have not taken out of context, that I think it's important that we bring them back up and remind you, because we're here to tell you they mattered. We all went to work today. We started our days early, we worked our days long and hard, and then we waited around an extra 2.5 hours after work tonight instead of leaving town to come to this meeting to remind you that your words matter. We're putting in the extra time to remind you of that. So I feel like the question is not whether Taneytown should have meters. The question is whether the city has removed these mechanisms and the parking management system that prior councils supported to protect Main Street businesses. What are we doing with that? What are we creating? What are we trying to accomplish with that? Are we trying to save money? Are we trying to help businesses thrive? Are we trying to give them a hand up when we bring them to town and invite businesses to town. We have someone coming to town tomorrow to look at One York. When I look at him tomorrow, I want to be able to tell him that we have a supportive council and a supportive government that understands that he wants to start a new business and that this is where he should do it. And I've got a hard time looking tenants in the eye and potential tenants in the eye and telling them that without some of these answers and without everybody remembering the things that they support from council. So some of the questions that we have leading out of this meeting are what baseline parking data existed before those meters were removed. There were none that were shared publicly with stakeholders. Who's collecting current parking data and what methods are being used? Current city minutes indicate that the meetings are vague, and Maryland State Highway and the Executive Administrative Assistant Albin. What credentials for this type of research does she have? An analysis? You know, it's all undetermined and undisclosed by the city. We don't know. Are occupancy rates, turnover, length of stay, and available spaces being tracked consistently? As a stakeholder, we're collecting this data. We've notified the city that we're collecting this data. We collect this data twice a day, almost every single day. We collect it in the morning and we collect it in the afternoon. There's no other data that we know of that's being reported or disclosed by the city. How are business owners, customers, residents, employees, and municipal parking needs all being considered? There's no citywide Main Street communication to include or indicate that there's collaboration or comprehensive review of all of those aspects. What measurable criteria is going to determine whether the pilot, if the pilot exists, is successful? Because as of right now, it looks like there was a pilot that was potentially going to happen, and that pilot was skipped over. That pilot was going to look at City Hall and the post office areas for metering and to see how that affected businesses. Friends, that is not your downtown Main Street. That small area represents where your city government parks, which I'm going to remind you still has parking meters. So the people of your city are also going to ask, why does your city government municipal lot have parking meters? Because we find it important that our government officials and their visitors have somewhere to park consistently that's monitored 24 hours a day, says the sign in the lot. Well, that's a whole lot more than I feel like any business in this town, large or small, has ever received. And now ours are gone, and parking is an issue, and yet it's not an issue here. Not at all. So a major concern is consistency. Parking controls remain near City Hall, again, to preserve that availability. We don't have that anywhere else. And I think you're understanding what I'm saying. I think you realize that there's some big inconsistencies and big gaps in transparency here. And we're telling you, people of the city are not here to fight the council on the issues. What we're here is to say we're going to be part of it. We deserve to be part of it. We pay a lot of taxes to be part of it. So I think it's important that you allow your city to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to come up next for public comment?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Mark. I'm a downtown business owner. I'm going to be quick because most of the points have already been made by other people. So I just would like to show my support for the need for parking meters. I also would like to mention that I did not receive any survey about parking meters, nor was I asked my position on parking meters. Melody was not able to make it, has the Taneytown barbershop down here. She wasn't able to make it tonight. She said that just recently she had an elder customer with a cane who had to walk a block and a half up the road because there wasn't any spots any closer to their business. You know, my business is a print shop. People have to carry boxes, heavier stuff, and they don't want to walk 2 blocks up the road to try to find a meter, try to find a spot. Let's see. The problem is there's more apartment renters than there are parking spots. So if there's no protections given to the business owners to help with parking spaces, then the businesses will not have any parking spots for their customers. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to come up next for public comment? Hearing none, I'll let council go first before I go into, does council have anything they'd like to say?
Not right now.
Go first. That's fine. I'll start it off. So I know, again, as a fellow business owner on Main Street, my question to my fellow business owners out there is, are you guys tracking metrics since we've taken the meters out? Are you seeing a downward track of revenue or sales or anything like that? That'd be my ask. The next would be, again, part of the reason that parking meters were there was for the turnover. But one simple thing you can do in those meters is continuously just feed them, right? So technically you can continuously feed a meter and continue parking until you get free parking for the night. So again, the meters aren't the turnover solved. We've already had that problem. We've already had this discussion. I know I've had a discussion with you, Brandy. Meters have not been sufficient. Even with the enforcement, the kickback that we're getting from the people that we're enforcing it on is, why are you guys enforcing it on us like this? Is it because specific business owners are calling and saying these are their spots? Well, they're everybody's spots. And yes, some people don't feed the meters, but even business customers that we give those tickets to will complain and say they're not going to come back to Taneytown because they received a ticket on a parking meter for 2 hours when there's 10 free spots on those streets. And that's the biggest thing, is there are spots continuously free on those streets every day. I get here at probably 9 a.m. every day out here when I go to the business to open up at 10 and close at 10. And I've seen these streets and I've seen the people who park on them. And I'm going to tell you, the majority of these spots are open. And they continue to be open. Why continue to tell people to come and use spots that are open? And yes, there are busy periods. There are busy periods for every business. There are periods when I don't have parking. There are periods when every business doesn't have parking. And yes, people have to park somewhere else. That is the inconvenience of street parking to begin with. But just because there's no meters there, again, part of the reason we took them out is to see if there is a problem, so we can go on to the next step before spending $70,000 on a laser system. We wanted to see if there actually is a problem, that meters not being there, if it's exacerbating it. And again, we haven't seen that yet. I know I've asked business owners to track data as far as who's parking out there, what they're seeing during their business times, so we can address that. And one of the things I spoke to you was that we were going to have an additional meeting in August about this. So yes, we have been in communication as far as additional meetings and timeline processes of what we were looking at. I even talked with you about putting the 2-hour signs later in July after we've seen whether there is a problem being addressed with vehicles coming up and down the road, or parking up and down the road. But again, one of the things I've asked staff, for instance, is to, again, be keen aware of where people are parking. Are these spots being filled? And again, on a typical day when you come out here at 3 p.m., you're going to see the majority of our street parking is open. And I don't know if is that because we have a lot of business coming in? Is that, I'm getting two conflicting things, is that we don't have enough parking, but again, the parking spaces are open. And one thing I've received from residents as well is the complaints of, hey, one of the reasons I don't want to come downtown is I don't want to feed the meter. I don't carry coins on me. And yes, we can go put a sticker with a QR code on it, but the next question is going to be, well, I don't want to scan the QR code. I don't want to do the QR code. I don't carry a phone to scan the QR code. So what we're trying to do is, again, evaluate what would be the best practice to put out there for business owners, residents, and everybody alike, because those parking spots are not just for businesses, but they're also for residents who need to use them. They're for everybody. They're the public's parking. So again, my biggest thing is this is a process, and we have been pretty clear. If you watch the meetings, if you follow the meetings, you've heard what we've said on the issue. And we've said, again, this is going to be a test and trial period. Even what was put onto the newspaper, I think even said August, we were going to have an additional meeting talking about the parking meters. So yes, we have been clear about the process, but why are we going to spend $70,000 if we don't know if there necessarily is a problem to begin with? Because the meters themselves are showing us that there isn't a problem, that they're not being filled. Those spots are not being filled. So let's take away the meters, see what's going on. If those parking spots are being filled, brief council on why they should spend $70,000 to go on to the next step of the laser parking. And that is what we have said. Those are the next steps. But what we want to do is make sure that before we spend $70,000, that there is a problem to address. We're not just going to spend that money just to spend it. That'd just be not fiscally responsible. We need to make sure that there's a problem to be addressed with the money that we're going to spend. And again, that is what we look to see. That is what when we originally communicated about the meters, and I did tell you the meters were going to be removed, one of the things I expressed was that, yes, we want to see if there is a problem. And yes, I know there are business owners who are going to say there is a problem, but we need to see if there's a problem. We need to visibly see if there is a problem before we spend $70,000. So again, that's where I'll leave off. I'll let council go any further on.
I've gotten two consistent comments from residents that I talk to. One, that a large number of the businesses downtown aren't open. Aren't open when people are around. Two, if you were going to go downtown to park. Now we've got to pay to park in downtown. So from a resident's perspective, it seems to be a deterrent. And that, at least that's in the people that have spoken to me about it. So I absolutely was for getting rid of the meters. If we have to do, and I think that was my quote from that meeting, is if we have to do something, then the street embedded laser is the way to go. But that's that would be pretty much my thoughts on it.
Any additional comments from council?
Just a comment, as a 23-year-old business on downtown, I remember back a number of years ago, and Ms. Bollinger alluded to this, when Streetscape was finished, we had this same debate, well, should we install the parking meters or not? They had to come down because of Streetscape, and then council was pretty divided about what to do about that. The same arguments the mayor just made were made then. But there was a difference. We invited the business community into a council meeting that night and said, come in and let us know what you think, what you want to do. Well, the whole downtown turned up, a larger crowd than even tonight, and pretty much convinced us that maybe the mayor is right. Maybe we do have vacant places. We did a big survey back then. We took pictures and counted cars and watched the hours and came to the conclusion that, well, maybe we could get by. But then on the other hand, we have to look at it from another perspective. When the businesses are open and thriving, they have to have parking in front of their facilities. We can't not have that. The business community at that time convinced me, and I remain convinced today, that we should have parking meters downtown. And it's simply from a point of view that lets residences and tenants know that if you sit by a parking meter and don't pay for that parking meter, you could get fined. And I think that's the deterrent that we need to make sure to insurances. The businesses will survive and increase, and that's exactly what was our goal back then. I'm not sure we have that same goal, but if we want to build the downtown businesses, we've got to provide parking for the people who are going to shop at those businesses, and you can't do it without restricted parking of some kind. Whether it's parking meters or something else, that discussion could be had at a later time. But we do need restricted parking downtown to prevent tenants from, or anybody, not just tenants, anybody from abusing the privilege of parking at the curb 24/7. Again, I was convinced that night, not all those years ago, and I remain convinced tonight. It could have been that pot of tar and sack of feathers that convinced me, but I remain convinced, and I think that it would do us well to reinstall the parking meters or some kind of parking restrictions. Ms. Ballard says, well, nobody came to her and told her we were going to do this. Well, I didn't know it till it happened. In fact, I didn't know it till 2 days after it happened. Somebody came into my office and said, you know, they took the parking meters out? And I didn't even notice it. It was like a day or two after the thing happened. But it's more of the idea of having restricted parking than it is the need for having restricted parking. I think the restricted parking encourages people to shop downtown and know that if they come downtown to shop, they will find a place to park and won't have to walk up the hill or down the hill or over across the street. I think it's something that we did. We were, I'm sorry that I didn't know about it beforehand myself, and I just, I wish we had them back. I can't do that, you can do that.
1 second, going through council discussion, and then I'll open it back up for comment from public. Any additional questions, comments, concerns from council? Hearing none, you're going to come up.
So I'd just like to say that you will see empty parking spaces when you're driving up and down 140 or 194.
Do you mind coming,
Yeah, do you mind
coming to the mic so that way anyone watching?
I was gonna say the people on the stream can't
I was
hear
like, I
you.
can hear you, but anyone watching won't.
The people
on
in
the stream couldn't
YouTube
hear you.
land can't
Yeah,
hear
the
you.
YouTube landers.
So I agree that there's empty parking places when you go up and down 194, 140 or whatever. I think the key is that as I just said, there's 3 empty businesses right now, and there's a store over here on the other corner that's been rented and occupied but not open for 5 years or whatever. If these all get up and running, then there might not be as many open parking spaces. But with that said, when you've got the bakery over here and 2 spaces right in front of the store and they're occupied for 3 days, and you have, it's this parking spaces in front of the stores that I think the main thing are concerned about. But you can't go and put parking meters in front of stores and then you got a new store and so that's all I wanted to comment. It's the specific parking meters for the businesses, not necessarily the strip where there's no businesses in front of. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
One comment I will make regarding again, some of the business that we have opening and whatnot is we do have a lot of businesses that are also only open on the weekends, where we
Correct.
don't enforce parking meters or have parking meters to begin with. So again, that's one kind of takeaway that I'm also seeing is that while yes, we have new businesses opening, we have more businesses on Main Street, that isn't necessarily contributing to street parking during the weekdays because they're businesses that are open Saturdays and Sundays, and we don't do metered parking for those days. So again, I just wanted
Well,
to
we
add
did
that
do
on.
parking restriction. I mean, you fed the meters on Saturdays, but not
It
on
was Saturday, maybe it was just
not on
Sunday.
Sundays. On Sundays, we didn't. It was 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. was the meter enforcement for as long as I remember, and the fact that people don't carry coins, well, that's, I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, it costs you 25 cents for an hour. It's not like you go to Gettysburg and you got to put whatever, $1.50 in for an hour. I mean, it's not,
Download an app.
right.
And that's why,
Right.
and that is
But-
one thing that also confuses me is because I know we do have residents that just sit down there and feed the meters to sit there and park, and they can do that. So they're already, if a resident doesn't want to turn over, they can simply pay, I think the street, what is it, 10 to 6, 8 to 4, they can pay $4 and get the spot for the day.
No, because the meters was only good for 2 hours.
Yeah, you just keep feeding it for 2 hours. right?
Well,
You just come back and feed
there's
it.
nobody gonna come out of their house and put $2 more, but anyway,
I know.
thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Yep.
So, I mean, obviously, the big issue with Taneytown is that the downtown area doesn't have businesses fully open throughout the main strip, and certain businesses are seeing more traffic than others. So obviously, they're having issues with parking compared to other businesses that may not see that traffic. So I mean, I can understand the frustration from certain businesses, but I think we're just working through the process on what benefits all of Main Street. But I mean, it just takes some time. So just working through it. We haven't forgot about it. Believe me, we talk about it all the time during these meetings, just not as much detail as some people may.
Brandy?
So I've heard it twice. There's not a lot of businesses open, or these businesses aren't open when we're checking the meters. So something that I want you to leave here tonight was imagine if all those spaces that are vacant in your downtown were not. Imagine if you had thriving businesses in all of them, because that should be the goal. We shouldn't be talking about we have plenty of ample space because these businesses aren't open or these businesses aren't occupied in these buildings. They should be. and they will be, but not if the council defaults to, we have plenty of parking because there's not anybody there. I have a lot of pictures on this phone. Too many, probably. Some I will show you, some I will not. But a lot of the photos in here recently are of the cars on West Baltimore Street because we own ample property on West Baltimore Street. And I can tell you, what you're describing on East Baltimore Street is not our experience on West Baltimore Street. West Baltimore Street, you asked for data. I have charts. I was going to save them for another night, but I'll share a little bit of it with you. We've had 36 customers since June 22nd that unprompted have told us that it was more difficult to find parking since the meters went away. More difficult. Not easier, not friendlier, not closer, not more convenient, more difficult, which to our customers is annoying. Doesn't mean that they won't walk farther to get to our store. It means that Taneytown has inconvenienced them in doing it. So it means maybe they don't do as often, or maybe they don't tell other people as often how great it is to continue down the street and look at other businesses because they want to come in, support us, and get out. We want them to walk from our store to the next store, to the next store. Those are the kind of things that we need to be looking at. We have 8 spaces on West Baltimore Street that are available that were as metered parking. Currently, there are only 7 because one has been permanently reserved. 3 to 6 spaces are either being used by residents or business owners at this current time, at any given time during any given day during the week. That is 67%. 67% is being utilized at a minimum between business owners and residents. Now, that number is important because 2 things are happening. One, we usually bring 3 cars to work when we come to work with our kids. So when we bring those vehicles to work, we don't park on the main street because that takes valuable space that we need for our customers. Not more residents. We're not being polite and giving our neighbors more parking space to use up one space for an entire day. That's not the point. The point is that if we all parked on the street the way that everyone else is currently parking on the street, that now bumps our utilization to 80 to 112% that is taken on West Baltimore Street at any given time during the day by the time we have just businesses, business owners, and residents. So tell me where your customers are parking if you've got 80 to 112% utilization for your parking. Because it's my understanding that anything over 85% is critical when you look at downtown parking measures and what we need to do to restrict access so that we have more parking. Now you're gonna ask me how I got to 112%. It's a short, sweet comment because we have 2 easements on West Baltimore Street that people freely use as parking spaces, and they are not. We've asked the city for help with this. We've asked the city for assistance, and the answer we always get is talk to State Highway. They own the road. Well, guess what? That's not good enough anymore. We've let it go for 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. It's not gonna fly. The city at this point needs to be able to tell business owners, here's our contact at State Highway. Let us help you get in touch with them, and let's find out how we can work through this together so that your business has what it needs in this town. Because right now, the answer that I get is it's not our problem. We can't help you. State Highway did this. So we're not gonna do that anymore. We're gonna be accountable. We're gonna be an accountable council. We're gonna be accountable for our town, for our businesses, for our residents. We can help people figure these problems out. Because the other thing that I see that this council has talked about recently is people parking in a fire lane. I watch people and have pictures of people parking in the fire lane in front of Jim's house when there's a spot available across the street. So tell me why somebody didn't park there instead of in a fire lane, and the answer is convenience. People for businesses want convenience. So if we want to talk about what it looks like for our customers to have to walk 2 to 4 minutes away, or to walk behind the church, or to walk down Main Street, I'll tell you what that looks like. And maybe a physical demonstration would make it really clear. But that looks like, from a gun store's perspective, is people walking down the street openly with firearms. That's what that looks like for a gun store. Why are they open? Because Maryland law doesn't say it needs to be in a case. So all of a sudden, Taneytown's going to see this all the time, and it's not something that people are used to seeing. It's not even something that people want to see. But I can tell you that that's a reality. So we don't feel like we need our customers to feel uncomfortable doing it. We don't feel like we need the city to be uncomfortable that we're doing it. Convenient, reliable, predictable access is that important, and that's to every business. Ours, weapons are a big deal. I feel like it should always be a big deal. It should always be a priority, but people don't feel safe, which our family foundation really sticks to safety. So that needs to be brought into play. We're trying to be safe, and we're promoting that. Saying that we have to walk all over town to get to our cars after someone picks up a gun repair isn't it. We can do better than that. Thank you.
Thank you. So one thing I do want to hit on is, again, if we're talking safe, reliable parking, Main Street metered parking is never going to be that. You can come up and put coins into it and continuously get parking. So if the idea is that these spots are just going to free up because meters are there, and again, Brandy, I know you've complained about those spots being filled even before we took out the meters. So my question would be, what was that percentage before we took out the meters, and what is it now? Because again, I know you were saying you didn't have spots when the meters were up. And that's my thing is that is the meters technically exacerbating? Is the percentage going up? And not only that, when we're looking at those percentages for parking, normally you're taking into account additional public parking in the surrounding area, which across from y'all's lot is an additional public parking area. And that is within a 2 to 4 minute walk to your business. And when we're talking about walks to businesses, as far as seeing other businesses and hoping that other patrons patron other businesses, would we not want people to walk by other businesses along the Main Street? That's part of Main Street economic development to begin with. So why, when we know that there's additional parking, what we're really saying is we want the additional parking in front of our businesses because we know there is additional parking. And that, I think that is the problem there, is that we know there's additional parking. We know there is parking in the city. We have multiple public parking lots in this city. Yes, they're not directly in front of businesses, but even then, even though they're directly in front of your business, that does not make them a safe, reliable parking spot because anybody can park in that spot and pay that meter, whether it's for your business or whether it's for any business along that Main Street. Just because it's in front of your business doesn't make that your business's parking spot on Main Street, even with that meter. So let's say I know New Anchovies is next to you. Let's say if somebody's coming through New Anchovies, they can fill every one of your parking spots, they can put coins in the meters, and you don't have a parking spot now, even though let's say meters are there, right? That's the problem, is that the meters don't do what I think the businesses think they necessarily do. They don't tend to, while they promote a level of turnover, it's not the turnover that businesses want to see because we're still consistently getting the calls of the parking spots that are in front of their businesses, that they want people ticketed and whatnot for those spots, or that they're filled, or that we're seeing other residents filling them and paying the meters. And part of the reason why we lost one of the spots on the West Baltimore over there is because a resident kept getting ticketed who was handicapped, and she went to the state and got a handicap disability spot. And this is my thing, is that's not the only one that the state has talked about giving out, and they might actually have 2 already, I'm not too sure. But this is my thing, is that those meters aren't doing necessarily what you're thinking they're doing. Part of the concern that we have from residents and patrons who are patroning businesses is that we don't want to pay meters. We don't have change to pay meters. If you're especially looking for anybody in the younger demographic, a lot of people just aren't carrying change. I mean, that is the simple truth of the modern economy. Again, we could go to put in the QR code, but the next question is going to be, well, I don't want to have to go on my phone and pay the QR code. Again, what we're trying to do is to try to see if removing the meters has exacerbated the problem. After we've identified that, we'll add additional signage. If that is, again, that'd be the next step. Free 2-hour parking, look at how we enforce that. If we are still unable to see the turnover that we want to see in those businesses, the proposition will be brought up to council again for the lasered metered spaces. But we want to make sure that we go through all those avenues before we dedicate $70,000 to doing a project for all those spaces. Because again, while we know through our spaces being filled, there is still a lot of public parking that is available to people. And yes, the percentage of, let's say I have 3 spots in front of my business, 2 people come fill those up, I'm at 66% capacity. That is a large number for 3 spaces, but that's not a large number when you account for 40 additional parking spaces at public parking down the road from you. And yes, nobody likes to walk, but Not to use one of Jim's examples, but yes, if you go to a Walmart or you go to any store, for instance, and you park, you walk to get to the store. When I go to another main street, I normally don't get to park in front of the business that I'm trying to patron. I normally have to walk a little bit to get to those businesses. I recently just had to do it. Walking is part of the main street dynamic. And yes, we have spots on East Baltimore that they could park and walk over. And we just have parking. We know we have parking. But what we need to see is, again, whether that turnover we're seeing on those spots, whether we desperately need it to where we're going to spend $70,000, and whether the 2-hour signs can do it, or whether the enforcement we do on the 2-hour signs can stop that before we get to lasered parking. But I'm going to tell you, I much prefer that avenue as opposed to the coined meters, because the coined meters aren't doing it for patrons. They're not doing y'all service because we get consistently called to go try to enforce them, and people just come out and pay them. The coin meters are antiquated. They are not working the way that we want to see them work. We are trying to modernize that, but what we need to do is make sure that there is a problem being exacerbated before we spend $70,000 on this. That's what I have. I'll let council, if they have an additional.
Can we just consider in a future workshop just exploring solutions? I know some of this predates me, and I think, at least from my understanding of West Baltimore, the problem might be more unique to that location, especially since the south side of that is only, I think, 3 spots or 4. I don't remember. Of the 7, they're only on that side. So, like, I don't know. Just something to think about if we do want to talk about just long-term solutions.
I will say one of the things.
That's always open though, right? Like if we know that something's a problem, then we try and address it. I think.
Correct.
I think part of this, at least in my mind, is like we don't know if there's actually really a problem here. And Chris, you kind of touched on a couple of things. Like, so I used to spend a lot of time on different main streets, and walking and walkability was like a really big part of it. It was part of the experience, right? You go, you park in the lot, and you walk up and down Main Street. So you can check out the shops and you know, go in them to do whatever. And I always felt like that was part of the Main Street experience. I've also been to a lot of main streets who didn't have meters, and it was fine. Like I never saw any problems. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a parking management solution. I don't know what that looks like yet, but you brought up Walmart. So a potential analogy that I kind of thought about while all this was happening was that Walmart and Target set up their stores so that people have to walk around in their stores so that they potentially see other things and buy more stuff. Like, to me, that's kind of the analogy for Main Street. You want to set up something where people have to walk to do stuff because they gain exposure to other shops that might pique their interest, so they go into it, and you know, if they go into it, they're more likely to spend money there. But if you design a system where it's just you park where, like, right in front of whatever store you're going in, you go there and you're gone, you're not creating what I feel like would be, in my mind, the quintessential Main Street experience, which is, again, like, you walk around, you go to stuff, you go in stores, you go in Stonehouse, and then you go in Rust right next door because you've walked by it and you saw some stuff that you thought might be dope, and you were like, oh, cool, I'm gonna go in there and buy stuff, right? So, like, in my mind, I'm trying to figure out how we can actually design that experience, and there's only so much we can do as the city. A lot of it is also the private business owners that are there to create the experience too. But like I'm just not sure that parking meters really help create like the general Main Street environment where people come, they walk around, and they do stuff. Again, I don't know what that looks like. I'm sure that some kind of parking management solution is going to need to happen. Maybe it's pucks, maybe it's the 2-hour
Dog park,
whatever.
other shit.
Like it.
And that's kind of what I talked about, is we're still going to have something in August where we're going to kind of come back with the feedback that, you know, that was some of the feedback that I asked you was for a meeting in August that we were going to present to council. That we do. We want to talk to council in depth of whether there is an issue, what the issue looks like, and what different solutions we can come up to actually solve it before we get to the 70,000. So one thing I do want to say is, again, while everybody's still here, I do appreciate everybody coming out and talking with us on it tonight. I know it's y'all's time and whatnot.
I just want to know, you said you know these cities that don't have any parking meters. I'd like to know what they are, because I've never seen them exist anywhere. I
Yes.
mean, they're not in Frederick, they're not in Baltimore, they're not in Westminster. Where do these places exist?
So, one of them,
Sykesville?
I don't know if it is now, but I used to spend a lot of time in Main Street, Ellicott City.
Okay.
They didn't have meters at all.
Okay,
for-
well, we can check
for
into
like-
that,
for
see
like a
if they
decade or
put them
two.
back, then I
I
guess
was
that
there a
would.
lot.
If they put them back, that would be a good case for having meters then.
It might be, that very well may be the
And,
case. I don't know
and
the
second of all,
answer.
usually, you know, with the police coming around and they monitor them, I can see it by personal experience. When the police come around, you know, the lots, all the spaces fill up, the police come around, give tickets, they're gone. It's empty for a week. And then it starts back, filling up, and then the cop comes around, gives tickets, it's empty for a week. And the meters are not for businesses, but they're for everyone. But the business, people that go into a business are there for 5 or 10 minutes. The people residents are there for hours. So to me, if the residents, it would be more practical for the residents to be parking in these off-alley areas. So, yeah, so that's, yeah, so, and also I've never seen, you know, I look out the window, I have a big window there, and it would be exceedingly rare, you know, there's an apartment complex right across the street from me. I don't know if I've ever, in 36 years, seen anybody run out of that apartment complex, put a quarter in the meter, run back in. 2 hours later, run out of the complex, put 25 cents. I don't think I've ever seen that ever. So if that's happening, I don't know where that person is also. Thanks for your time.
One thing I will say is we've known it's happening because I know some of the business owners who have complained about those specific spots, and we've gone out there, checked the meter,
And they're doing it
and they paid it.
20, they're
and
doing
they
it
paid
every
out.
day, every day.
You don't have to do it the entire day
Yeah,
because.
but I'm
at
just
night-
saying they're doing it 5 days a week, for 8
There-
hours a day, or
Some
12
of
hours
the
a day.
parking experiences that we've had has been, we've gone out there
I mean, I
to,
find it hard to believe somebody's putting meters in a meter 12 hours a day, every 2 hours, 6 times a day, and then 5 days, 6 days a week. So they're coming out putting money in 36 times a week, is basically what you're saying. I mean, I think that'd be exceedingly rare.
again, I'm gonna tell you, we have business owners who have called and complained about a specific parking spot where somebody was just coming out and feeding the meter. And they can do that.
I'm sure it probably happens, but it's pretty rare, I imagine.
But it's kind of the same thing, is that is the thing,
But
those.
I can see it, when they give tickets, it clears them out. They're all gone. And then gradually, when they don't give tickets that are monitored, they come back and it fills up. And, oh, my other thing is.
Can you
so
come back to
we
the mic?
decided to-
Can you come back to the
decided
mic, please?
test it. You decided to test it and see if it's gonna work. So basically, in 2 months, we're gonna see if it filled up. So basically, if it doesn't work and all the parking spots are completely filled for 2 months and we see there's a problem, then we're gonna do something. And then how long is it gonna take to put meters in after we've realized in 2 months that all the spots are completely filled all the time? So then we have what, another year after that? So we have a year and 2 months without meters?
Jim, when we had the guys go out and take meters, how long did they take taking out the meters?
It was several.
For instance, if we do like a laser parking solution, right? There would be a contractor who comes out and does it. These are state.
I'll tell you what, nothing in the government's done in a month.
Well, this is.
If you have some Superman that's doing stuff, great for you.
This is my thing again. What are you seeing a downward track in revenue from the meters being?
I'm seeing people have to walk further. I'm seeing a gradual filling of the spaces. You know, people didn't realize, you said it started in November where they weren't doing it. The people didn't realize it. They see the meters, they're not parking there.
Well,
They're used to getting $25
yeah.
tickets.
1 second though, right? Because when you went back to your earlier discussion, one of your arguments was that we enforce it for a week and then everybody flocks and fills them back up. So we didn't enforce them for 6 months and they didn't fill up.
Well, it takes a while sometimes, yeah. I mean,
Well, this is what I mean though, is that, you know, the idea was that when we'd come out and enforce the meters, all those spots, you know, would free up for a week. We didn't enforce them for 6 months. Nobody went out there and wrote a ticket. No cop went up and down there doing that. We didn't enforce them. Those spots did not fill back up. And again, we're still.
because after you get a $25 fine, you don't immediately go back there next week. It takes time. Once you get a $25 ticket, you get a reminder for multiple months not to park there.
Again, my biggest takeaway from it is that I don't see the meters doing what you guys see them doing. You can pay the meters. Those are, and one of the big things I heard is, those are,
Like you say, nobody's going out there 36 times a week to put quarters in a meter. Nobody's doing that. Maybe
But
one
this is-
person in front of your store, but nobody anywhere else is doing that.
this is my thing too, right? Is that, let's say it isn't just that person coming out there. Let's say, again, going back to one of the other businesses that are abutting other businesses. If 3 people from No Anchovies are there feeding a meter, 3 more come in, and those aren't viable spots. Those aren't guaranteed spots. One of the things I've heard is guaranteed spots for outside of front of businesses. Metered parking is not guaranteed for anybody. So it doesn't.
You're gonna have a lot less spots if you have no, the spots are gonna be filled way more if there's no meters.
Well, let's see that right before we spend $70,000.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So we have to wait 2 or 3 months, have 0 parking spot for 2 or 3 months, and then we'll have to wait 6 months after that to get meters back in.
I think,
Basically, you're not gonna have any parking spots for 9 months.
I think the biggest problem is that we don't just answer to downtown businesses. We answer to all residents in Taneytown, so if we, like, their tax money is also going towards this, so if they want to see it come to good use.
Monopolize a meter for 8 hours a day.
I mean, if they come down and feed it, they come down and feed it.
Everybody gets it for 2 hours then. How about that?
That's what we.
Residents can sit there for 8 hours. If they don't
That's
work,
what,
they can sit there.
that's what we're talking about. The next thing is 2-hour free parking signs. That's exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I
But,
mean,
yeah.
that's my thing, right, is we don't want to spend money we don't have to spend. The first
I
thing,
don't understand why they just didn't repair the meters were there. Why
repair,
you have to spend $70,000? Why did you rip them all out? You
the,
could have just repaired what was there.
the other system we're talking about is completely different from the meter system. It's a laser system where you go there, it starts a free 2-hour clock on you.
I honestly believe it'll be a
Regardless
better
of the
solution to the business owners than meters, like.
Regardless of the parking management solution we end up landing on, I think we were all in agreement that parking meters were antiquated and we wanted
Well,
to.
some kind of way to monitor it. I mean,
Right.
Tina's here.
Well, I
Tina
get
didn't
you.
speak up. Tina's been a business owner for 40 years down here. The guy that has a convenience store, I went over and talked to him. He said that it's ridiculous, there's no parking. So, I mean, the business owners are, 4 or 5 business owners are here, and all these 4 or 5 have issues, so.
This would be my thing, is show me where you're not seeing the parking. Because when I come out here, and I'm out here every day, because my store is open 12 hours a day, every day.
The meters on my side of the road are all filled up. I should take a photo and text it to you? Is that what you want me to do?
That would be helpful, yes.
I'll do that.
Again, that's my only ask. If you are seeing a problem, please, let us know. Let us see the problem. But I'm gonna tell you, when I come out here, when my staff are out here, the feedback I'm getting from what we're seeing is that there is 20+ metered parking spaces that are open. And that is the other problem, is not only are those metered parking spaces open, but our public parking is open.
I mean, I don't think people to come into a print shop carrying a heavy box are supposed to be walking from a metered spot in front of the city offices and have to walk up the road, cross the light, and across the street to get their stuff. I don't think that's correct.
But
Well, let's say this
what
for
you're
the
talking
residents.
about is a loading zone.
Well, whatever.
That's not metered parking.
In the convenience store, they have bags they're coming out with. They have guns they're coming out with. Everybody's carrying stuff.
And
You're
so,
asking people to cross the highway. So what you're saying is
Carrying things.
there's public parking.
yeah,
There's public
so
parking.
other people can hear on it.
Not to belabor it, but everybody keeps missing some of the main points. And that is that we're all arguing over meters versus not meters. That doesn't matter. Would you like to talk about something else first?
Brandon, please
Then
continue.
I'll finish.
Just checking.
So, we're talking about meters. If the coin system is antiquated, give us something better. Talk about the laser system. Give us a definitive concrete answer on when the signs are going in, because we hear it might be June, it might be July, it might not be. We might not talk about it until August. Be clear. Make a plan. Be clear. Share it with people. Let us know what the plan is so we're involved. Let us know what to expect. Let us know that if parking is horrendous right now, that in July we're going to start enforcing the 2 hours again. It's my understanding, and we could double check with Jim, but I believe that the parking meter code is still on the books, which means unmetered spots are still eligible to be enforced for a 2-hour parking limit with or without signage.
if council chooses to have metered parking.
I believe,
Well,
no,
you
I
know,
believe that with or without the metered parking, it's
Unless,
still on the
unless you're
city
talking, unless you're
codes.
talking specific, just street parking.
That's a good point, and we've talked about this for a long time. And you have my sympathies, but one way to bring it to a head is on Monday night, when we meet for a regular meeting, someone, and I will do this, make a motion to reinstall the meters. If someone makes a second, we'll vote on it, and you'll know how we stand. Someone doesn't make a second, you'll know where we stand. But that'll resolve it one way or the other.
Well, and I would tell you, I don't know that if everybody's in agreement that coinage is an antiquated system, I don't know that the motion needs to be to reinstall the meters. It needs to be to readdress and choose another system of parking enforcement. Because what I hear from Mark, what I hear from Keith, what I hear from myself, what I hear from Dee, what I hear from everybody is we're missing a lot of enforcement. That's another piece of this that we've let off the hook for this conversation. You can't have parking meters or parking time limits without the enforcement aspect. One without the other doesn't work. It's null and void. The second biggest thing that nobody's talking about is that we have city public parking across the street behind the church with a contract that we have negotiated with Trinity. You have to cross a public highway. You have to walk across 140 with or without children, with or without packages, with or without things. And I don't care if you're carrying an envelope. You have to cross a highway. If you're at Mark's print shop and they park across the street, you're still crossing 194 to get to your vehicle to do it, when the biggest reasonable notion of the whole thing is that we need to understand that there is primary parking and there is secondary parking. Secondary parking, the city should absolutely support, is long-term parking. Primary parking, we need to look at turnover. And those are the important aspects, because we're arguing everything except those things. We keep saying, well, there's access to other places to park, go there. Well, we need to look at primary parking, secondary parking, long-term, short-term. And that's where most of our problems start, because every business owner here and every business owner that all of us business owners talked to are on board with that. Thank you.
I was gonna say, I have one quick question. Are you talking to the business owners that you say are parking in the spots? Because if they're parking in the spots on the street, it would seem that they don't agree with the fact that those spots need to remain open.
Ironically, it's a 50-50. To answer your question, I would tell you the business owners agree, and the business owners don't park there. But again, we get to enforcement, and either the business owner or the city don't enforce the employees of that business to park elsewhere.
Okay, but
So the business owners, yes,
you had said
are on
before
board.
that business owners were parking on the street. So that's what I'm.
So I think I said businesses. So businesses,
No,
I may
no,
have
you
said
said business
owners.
owners.
And if I did,
We know
yeah,
there- we
regardless,
know-
if I
we know
did,
there
I
is business
misspoke.
owners parking on the street because we've given out citations to
Yeah,
business owners.
and I
parking
know
on the
on
street.
East Baltimore, business owners parking on the street is also a thing that I have heard. I don't witness it often, but I've heard it. So I would tell you primarily, though, the businesses down on West Baltimore Street, every business owner on that end of the street is on board. There's rare that a business owner on that end of the street parks on the street unless it's for something very quick and specific.
Any additional public comment before we proceed? Hearing none, I am proceeding forward. Consideration review. Council, do you have anything you need consideration and review on?
Stop looking at me, no.
Hearing none, I am proceeding forward to resolution ordinances and agreements. Adoption, resolution 2026-03, countywide water resources element. Jim, did you have anything you want to touch on? Thank you guys for coming out.
No, other than just a reminder that we have to close the hearing at some point this
Yep.
evening on it. This was distributed to you a couple months ago. Basically, city staff was involved in providing the data regarding Taneytown. It's been vetted by the Planning Commission. They've already voted and approved it. So now all the 8 municipal elected officials throughout the county are doing the next step in it. So the county hopes to have all of the municipal governments adopt it prior to August, or by August. So that's why it's on for Monday night. And Just-
Yeah, we went over it on planning commission, so we've already been over it.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns from council? Hearing none, I'm proceeding forward. Resolution 2026-06A, retirement of debt services correction.
Right. That was an error on my part. The resolution that we did last month, I did not specify unrestricted funds. So the resolution that's in the packet basically makes that correction. So,
Any additional comments, questions, concerns from council? Hearing none, I'm proceeding forward to city manager report. Jim?
okay, I'll keep it brief tonight. Let's see. Work is continuing on site plan revisions as well as the sign code. With regard to the accessory dwelling unit ordinance, that was reviewed by the Planning Commission, and they made a recommendation that's included, a small text revision that's included in your packet this month. However, in further discussion, my takeaway from council's discussion was whether there was a way to restrict it to, or to limit investor-owned properties, and that's not something that we can do through the zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission seemed to focus much more on the parking situation and whether an accessory dwelling unit would have to provide additional parking spaces or not. So when we delved into that a little bit more and looked back at the state code, we found that while the Planning Commission was suggesting that we do a parking study for each specific accessory dwelling unit that would come before us, and that's what the suggested language was, per the state legislation, the city can conduct a parking study, but it's supposed to be done before the adoption of the ordinance. So we basically get one shot to do a parking study, and it has to be done before we adopt the ordinance.
Oh, that's
So
ugly.
we may be, if we want to move forward with a parking study before doing the enabling legislation for the ADUs, we're going to need to reintroduce it next month so that we have time to do a study. And
Have to study like the whole city, right?
and right, so what we've contemplated, and this needs to be developed more fully, because the state is very open-ended on what that parking study is. So they don't tell us it has to meet certain standards or it has to be done by a professional traffic engineer or anything like that. So the thought at the staff level is that we basically work with the police department to log observations of parking at different times throughout a couple-week period, and we note those neighborhoods or specific streets where there is more parking congestion than others and where there is typically available parking. And then with the ADU application, we will know that on these streets or in these neighborhoods, off-street parking will need to be provided for an accessory dwelling unit. But in other areas where we see there's not parking competition, that the off-street parking wouldn't be required. So if we want to do a parking study, it needs to happen before we adopt the ordinance. And this ordinance was scheduled for adoption Monday night. So we may want, if we want to look at the parking, we'll need to go back through.
The way it is written now, adding parking for auxiliary housing units is optional. I mean, you just,
Correct, right,
if you want to put it in, you can. If you don't want to put it in, you don't have to.
right.
And
So
that's not good. We need, why don't we just insist that anybody has an additional dwelling unit has to provide parking for however many adults occupy that structure. I don't know what you do, but
right, we have the ability to do that, but only if we do the parking study first. So there's a catch.
we need that. We can't leave it open-ended like it is. That's what I'm saying. It's just don't even have to address it if you leave it like it is now, because
right.
it's just,
The initial.
If you want to, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
The initial draft ordinance was basically modeled to adhere to the Maryland Department of Planning's and Department of Housing and Community Development's legislation, which was to make it easy to do accessory dwelling units. So it was crafted basically to meet the state's objectives, but with further conversation, some of our local concerns then came to light, and parking seemed to be, again, that I think that was the, and Harry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the big issue for the Planning Commission.
Yes.
So, and anecdotally, you know, I'm certainly aware of certain neighborhoods in the city from, you know, my years of being on staff that I'm very aware that there's a lot of parking competition, and residents have come to the city asking if we can have like a residential parking pass that you need for certain streets and things like that. So we're aware that there are certain neighborhoods where there's a lot of competition for parking. And so in those neighborhoods, we would want to require any new dwelling to have parking dedicated to it, because we already don't have enough parking for the people who live there. But then there are other communities where the streets are 38 feet wide and you've got parking on both sides, and more often than not, there's plenty of street parking. But it varies neighborhood by neighborhood. And something that we also need to consider, I guess, is neighborhoods evolve over time, right? So a neighborhood might have a lot of parking competition now, but in 20 years, maybe, you know, that the life cycle of that neighborhood has, you know, changed. And, you know, neighborhoods go through cycles like families do. So you get a neighborhood that may have a lot of young families moving in. Eventually, kids get cars. Now you've got, instead of 2 cars, you've got 4 cars for every house, but then the kids move out, and now you're back down to 2 cars. So, you know, it's kind of a cycle in neighborhoods too. So a lot of questions about parking with this one. So my recommendation is we come up with what we want to study. We'll work, you know, between the zoning office and the police department to figure out how we can, you know, make our observations and log them, and use that as a basis for where we believe off-street parking needs to be provided for accessory dwelling units.
I was gonna say, from a planning perspective, I 100% agree. The big concern was parking. That we have some streets that are only parking on one side, and the whole 9 yards. So, with this change of how we have to interpret the state statute, I agree we need to do our informal parking study and kind of come up with zones, for lack of a better term, just because that gives us the option later to be able to say, no, they need to have off-street parking because there is not enough parking in that particular neighborhood. If we don't do this particular step now and push this off a month, then we give up that right later, and that's a bad plan. So I wholeheartedly support pushing this off a month, doing our informal study, because that was one thing that was pointed out, is that there are no parameters in the state statute for what a parking study actually consists of. So,
Does council mind if I do something real quick? Again, we got some members of the audience who have been here for a bit, and we still got a lot to get through the agenda. I'm going to kind of go through the room to see who's here for what, so maybe I can get some of you guys out of here a bit faster. Is council okay with that?
Yes.
Just because we're going into 9 p.m. here. I'll start with the back. Is there anything on the agenda you're specifically here for? Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec, sounds good. Yeah, Memorial Park. Okay, yeah, Parks and Rec. Okay, sounds good. Memorial Park Expansion Bid Award, I'm assuming? So I'm gonna head there. Let's start there. Lorena, did you want to start it off? I know.
Got to pep up a little.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
Yes, hello. Sorry. All very weighty matters to discuss tonight. You all have received the memo that I prepared. Have you all had a chance to review it and digest it? We don't have the funding to support it. as much as that breaks my heart to say, because I have worked on this project for over 4 years and gotten a substantial amount of grant funding. And as you can see in the report, DNR, in order to salvage their reputation with the Department of Interior and National Park Service, have agreed to accommodate us to 50% match. We don't have the money for the other 50% match. We would have to take out financing for it. There is not going to be return on investment on this property. And as much as it pains me to say that, because I know the inadequacy of our fields, our parking, etc., I know that there are other priorities in the city. We have pushed a couple of playground replacements, Flickinger Park and Roberts Mill Park, off for 2 years. I had a certified playground safety inspector come in. I conduct inspections on the playgrounds and all of the parks facilities, everything in the parks, twice a year. But I am not certified. I had a CPSI come in and inspect those playgrounds to give me written confirmation those playgrounds would be safe until next year. So I moved those up on, with the agreement of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, moved those on the CIP in order to accommodate the Memorial Park expansion expenditure as we anticipated it at that time. Those playgrounds are going to have to be replaced next year. We have no funding. If we have to take those playgrounds out because they are no longer safe, there will not be any money to replace them. On the other hand, if we bless you. On the other hand, we cancel this project, we have to relinquish our grants. Our grants are majority funded, administered, or coordinated by Maryland Department of Natural Resources. I have been informed by them because of the situation and knowing that we don't have any funding for it, that we should, well, when I asked if it would be worthwhile or if we were to submit future grant applications for other projects such as playground replacements, etc., they stated it would not be perceived well. In other words, don't bother, because we'll have a black mark on us, and we've given them a black mark to the federal administration. Now, as I stated in the report, there's not much we can do. Conewago, the primary bidder, the only bidder who submitted a bid, value engineered this, deep dove on it to change a lot of things that had been engineered in the plans, and only were able to scrape $541,000 out of what they had already reduced to $5 million. Again, even with the DNR increasing their match in order for them to maintain their grant standing with the Department of Interior to 50%, we know what our funds are right now. As I stated in the report, we have right now in the Park Impact Fees Restricted Funds account about $45,000. That's it. Without additional growth and development and building permits being pulled, we don't have any park impact fees. So we have nothing other than that $45,000, other than what's available in the general funds. What's in the general funds right now? $1 million, just over $1 million. That's to pay payroll and keep the lights on for us, for the city to keep operating. So we understand the need for this facility. We also understand the reality of the return of investment on the facility. And we understand what our future priorities are for our CIP. So the board has recommended that the city obtain financing to complete the project as it was planned, or even without the field lighting, and award the construction contract to the sole bidder of Conewago Enterprises. However, they have made this request and recommendation with the caveat that they will defer to the council's ultimate decision on the project. And you can read the next paragraph with my statement. Do you want me to read that aloud? I think you all have read that. You know where my feelings are on that. Two years ago, again, I made the note, if we had dropped the sidewalk, the proposed sidewalk on 194 Frederick Street, Conowago, the primary bidder, stated their bid would have been at $3.5 million, including the lighting. So it would have been, what, $1 million less without the lighting, the field lighting, athletic field lighting. Let me clarify. And that huge cost increase between then and now is mostly due to various federal administration decisions that have occurred in the interim. Tariffs, which have affected, of course, the cost of construction materials, and the situation with Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, which is affecting the cost of petroleum, therefore affecting the cost of asphalt, one of the primary ingredients in that material. So that is where we stand. It's ironic that we've got so much federal grant money, but yet we are bound by the federal statutes of federal labor wages and the statute of Buy America, Build America, American-made steel and other products. So that's what's driving the cost up. Again, the asphalt, the tariffs on those materials, the federal labor wages, which are entailed, encumbered, and are a statute of the federal grant, which is the majority of the grant for the funding on this. I am reconciled to the decision that I know is inevitable, that we have no funding for this, so therefore we will need to cancel the project at this time, move it up on the CIP for probably 5 to 10 years, depending on when development is proceeding again in the city, to replenish the park impact fees and the restricted funds to go towards capital projects. Again, in the meantime, our priorities are those playground replacements and other projects on that CIP. Some of the CIP items are, and for those listening, CIP is Capital Improvement Program. Some of those items are, let's call them wish list items. The splash pad. A lot of people clamor for it, especially in the heat waves. Where's the swimming pool? Where's the splash pad? We had to push that off because we didn't have the funding for it. We had other priorities. A walking path at Flickinger Park. Again, those are wish list items. Those aren't requirements. The playgrounds are safety measured. They have a lifespan. We have repaired, we have replaced parts. They will need to be completely replaced next year. As I said before, they have been postponed. We cannot wait. After next year, that's it. Their lifespan is over. So we will not have access to grant funding. We will have to pay for that on our own. In preliminary discussions with the chair of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, who is present here this evening, Kelly Bowie, we have already determined that we will be cutting some events out of our program roster in order to reserve funds in the general fund in order to hopefully help next year with those playground replacements.
Good, thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Questions, council?
So it looks to me like we potentially would have up to $3.02 million via grant funding, correct?
Correct, because DNR will try to match, they'll try to accommodate a match so that they can maintain their standing in the eyes of the Department of Interior and National Park Service. In other words, if we relinquish the funds back to DNR, they have to go back to the feds and say, we aren't doing this project anymore. So next grant cycle, the feds could say, no, we don't have any faith in Maryland. Let's give that money to Nebraska, for instance.
So one of your scenarios I see here is without athletic field lighting, can't read, sorry. The $3.85 million from that without the athletic field lighting. In that same, you have $722,000 for Morton Buildings. Are those linked? Like, do you have to do both?
The building was described in the grant application. It is part and parcel of the grant application. However, we could modify that if we want to remove the building in order to accommodate the fields with or without lighting. However, we will be losing that deposit. If we cancel,
Right. I mean,
which we'll be
sometimes
canceling
things are
that project
sunk costs,
anyway.
though, right? Like, I'm trying to see if there's, a path forward to salvage this, because it's a fucking disaster, right? So if you got rid of Morton Buildings, you did the bid without the athletic field lighting, the city's on the hook for $820,000 of potential financing here, correct? Okay, my math is mathing, okay. So is there a path in the future, like in a year or two, to secure additional grant funding? Wouldn't have this quote-unquote black mark. So, like, could we secure additional grant funding to help us cover whatever costs haven't been paid for in this?
For this
Or-
project, for this particular project? I've exhausted all grant opportunities I've looked at.
I'm saying in the future, though, like, if you look again in a year and you say, hey, we did this project, like, it ended up being way above cost. Originally, when we were looking at doing this a couple of years ago, it was like $1.5 million, but cost exploded for reasons outside of our control. We had to eat a bunch of this additional expense. Like, is there monies from states or feds to help us recover these additional costs?
They've
Something that ever
already
happens?
stated that they are willing to accommodate a 50%. The federal grant and the federal grant is a 50% match. So if the project is for $1 million, DNR is saying they are willing to up it from the original $864,000 that we received to $2 million in order to maintain their grant standing with the Department of Interior and National Park Service.
So my math wasn't mathing then, because the $3 million is only if it comes in at like the $5 million plus bid, right?
They
It's
are
not-
willing to accommodate up to 50% of whatever to accommodate the cost increase. We are still on the hook for the other 50%. And I have been informed that even if it came in at 1.7 million, which is what was estimated 5 years ago when we embarked on this project, that was the engineer's estimate, 1.7. As you all know, it's been carried on the budget. Well, when you came on board, regardless, it's been carried $1.7 million budgeted for this project. I was informed that we don't even have, even if it did come in at that, even if the bids had come in at $1 million, we don't have the money to cover it at all, basically in any capacity. We have $45,000 in the park restricted funds fee to pay for capital projects, which is funded by, again, the park impact fees from development, from growth. Without that, we have nothing. And again, in the general fund right now, what we have available is, well, we don't have it available. Parks doesn't have it available. We have just over $1 million to make payroll, keep the lights on, and keep things running for the city.
In the last 5 to 10 years, approximately how much grant money have we actually attained?
We've received a lot of grants, actually. We've received a federal grant for Bollinger Park in the amount of, I'm just ballparking this, about $235,000 on that one, plus we also received a cost increase on that because when construction actually was occurring, the costs were increasing. So they gave us an additional $80,000 on that. So you'll have to do your calculations there.
I've done a lot of math.
Thank you. Okay, good. All right. So let's say 235
Yeah.
plus an additional 80,000 that we received on the federal grant, and then we received $150,000 through DNR for their community parks and playgrounds grant on that particular project. We've also received program open space funding for the Memorial Park Tot Lot, the Taneytown High School Park softball athletic field lighting, and also the Memorial Park tennis court and basketball court resurfacing projects. So we've obtained 90%, I would say at least 90% of our grants originate from or are administered by Maryland DNR.
Because my thought process is the value to debt finance is greater than the forfeiture future grants. Looking at the numbers here, if we debt finance for 15 years at 4% for about $2.5 million, that's going to run our town about $250,000 a year. If we do 20 years, $200,000 a year. But is that beneficial to debt finance and then still have access to hopefully at least $2 million in grant funding over the next 10 years? Because if we get blacklisted, if that's what it is,
Correct.
will we get
And
at least
not
that $2
to,
million?
not to be, I would love to see this project succeed, but I want to reiterate that grant funding is not guaranteed.
Yeah, well, it's about to be guaranteed no from what it sounds like.
Correct. We will go to 0%
We lean
chance.
heavily on grants for our
We
town.
do. There is a green space equity grant program that recently came out that the state initiated. 100% coverage, no match required, that I was going to apply for the Flickinger Park playground replacement and walking path, which is also on our CIP. But after the directive from DNR, if we cancel this, then we're on the hook for that, or what will end up happening is we'll cancel the walking path. We'll have to replace the playground on our own dime, or just remove it for now and have nothing there. I don't know. Again, I know where parks is on the totem pole, so to speak. Public safety, public infrastructure, parks. But I also know the needs of the sports organizations in the city and the needs for, obviously, playgrounds. We certainly don't want to have to get to a point next year where we are removing those playgrounds and we can't afford to put anything in. Again, that's why we've already discussed preemptively slimming down some of the events and the programs that we offer, mostly for free to our residents because of the demographics here. The city pays for those programs, those instructors, the entertainment, et cetera. So we may have to just reevaluate those. One of which, a major one, is the Independence Day celebration. Those fireworks aren't cheap. And again, with the tariffs, those fireworks costs have increased exponentially. So we may have to just drop those completely. 20 minutes worth of $12,000 literally up in smoke. That's $12,000 we could put towards a playground replacement or something else that is necessary. Not a wish list item, but necessary.
Additional comments, questions, concerns by council? None, appreciate it. We'll consider it
All
going
right.
into Monday.
Thank you.
Jim, sorry to cut you too off. I know,
Okay.
again, it was just getting late, so we'll circle back to where you, sorry, did anybody else want to come up for Parks and Rec? I know.
Also, I want to say that Ed Van Arsdale with Aero Engineering, who's the engineer, or Aero Consulting, who's the engineering firm on this project, as you'll see on the agenda, there is consideration for inspection services and professional services agreement. That hinges on this project, obviously. If you're going to decide to cancel the project, then that will not need to be a consideration. So I don't know if you want to even discuss that this evening. Mr. Van Arsdale is here for any questions that you may have for him.
Yeah, I think the main concern is going to be council thinking over the project itself, so.
Correct.
Unless council has a pressing question for the inspection services, professional services agreement, Memorial Park.
All right,
Good.
thank you.
Nobody else, Parks and Rec, before I proceed on?
Yep.
Hi, Tisha Tracy Miller, representing Taneytown Baseball, as a board member. While baseball is not directly impacted by the expansion, many of our baseball families do participate in other sports as well, and we believe that it's going to benefit the community. Taneytown Baseball supports all of the other athletic programs, and we're in favor of the Memorial Park expansion. That's my statement from the board. On a personal note, I feel like if the government is willing to give us a grant of $2.5 million, we need to see if we can pursue a way to do that, the way to proceed with it. And I totally agree. We don't want a black mark on us that we're not eligible for any grant money anymore because we backed out of something. So I would just like to see it not just put aside. There's been a lot of work put into this, and I would like to see the council pursue how to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments on the Memorial Park bid award before I proceed? Hearing none, I'm proceeding. Jim?
Actually, yeah, how long do we have to ruminate on this?
The project completion date was scheduled for September of 2027. That is the federal grant term. We could ask for an extension if we were to proceed with the project. They're more than happy to extend if a project is underway so that it can be seen to completion. As far as ruminating on it, I think the bid is good for 90 days.
What stages do we get the grant money? Like, is it something?
It is reimbursed at the end.
Okay, yeah.
We have to front it. In other words, you would have to approve financing to fully front the project. And then once it's complete, then we submit for reimbursement, which would enable us to pay off half then of the loan. We would still be carrying the remainder.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional comments, questions, concerns by council? Hearing none. Jim, where you guys left off with the ADUs, if you guys had anything else?
Ready? Just a quick update on Memorial Drive.
Thank you, guys.
All the residences have been connected to the ductile iron water main along there, so what's left to do is basically installing the service line up along Grace Church, and also there's going to be a new line that comes up Church Street that will eventually create another loop in the system the next time we have some need to go into West Baltimore Street, but we're not going to touch the state road at this point. We're just going to bring the line up to the edge of the right-of-way for connection in the future. So that's about it. And there's more detail on that in the Public Works report for the month. I'll wrap it up at that so we can keep moving.
Sounds good. Sorry, council, I'm gonna do one more thing. Skip over Mountain Brook Developer Rights and its responsibilities agreement. Did we have anything else on that besides thinking until Monday?
No.
Yeah, did you have anything additional you
No,
wanted
I
to say?
just wanted to make sure if anybody had any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I mean,
Yep. Well,
we want to be a good team player with the town. I think we've proven that.
sounds good. Appreciate it. Again, they'll consider it going into Monday.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Jim, that was both city manager and department reports. Did you have anything else department reports wise?
Nothing specific, so.
Sounds good. Council, questions, comments, concerns before I proceed? Hearing none, heading into old business ordinance 10-2026, accessory dwelling units. Did anybody need to touch back up on that? I know we just talked about it a bit before.
I thought we had discussed two issues in that. One was owner occupancy, the other was short-term rentals. I know you started to touch on it while you were talking about going through the city manager report, but I thought at a minimum we talked about putting owner occupancy language in there for sure. I think we include the short-term rental stuff, but my question is, why is the owner occupancy stuff not in here if my memory is correct and we all kind of agreed that we wanted to at least see that language? Is it possible is my other...
That's not something we can do through zoning.
Yeah.
That's not a zoning law, is who can, so zoning says like what uses you can have on a property and where.
Okay.
But when we start talking about who can do those things that are permitted, I mean, there are other mechanisms to do that, but it wouldn't be through a zoning ordinance. We would be setting up basically a rental registration system.
So it would be
A lot
something
of
totally
municipalities
separate.
have them. We're kind of the exception to the rule that we don't have any kind of rental registration. But that could be developed. And we have this conversation every several years. And what my observation has been is council seems supportive of it, and then we talk about it publicly, and a bunch of property owners, landlords come to the meeting, and then the wind goes out of the collective sales, and it gets dropped. But that would be the vehicle to address short-term rentals or investor-owned single-family dwellings with accessory dwelling units, would be issuing licenses for that use.
Got it. Thank you.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns from council? Hearing none, I'm proceeding forward. The two charter resolutions, again, those are just the pending ones. Actually, I think we forgot to put on the other one that we were talking about, which was Article 1. So far, I've only received input from one council member as far as like the actual some physical language. I know we talked as well, so two council members. So for the Article 1,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Charter Article
Yep.
1. So again, if anybody has any additional comments, questions, concerns on Article 1, or any definitions that they would like to see in there, please submit those. Again, it's helpful to kind of look what everybody's kind of thinking before we put it out front. Again, that's just the charter resolution stuff. I'm gonna try to speed through here because we still have a closed session, y'all. Anybody have any? Yeah.
We're doing close tonight.
Jim, can we put closed to Monday? I mean, if not, I could just try to get through this.
Yeah, let's move.
I think we could put it off. We advertised it, but we told everybody we weren't going to reconvene an open session, so nobody's going to be here for it.
Does council have any
Anyhow,
concerns
we're
with
waiting
it
for it to
being
be
moved to
after.
Monday?
I would just rather it be tonight. I already allocated time for a longer meeting.
That's fine. I'm gonna just go through here then.
But I want to make sure everyone's good with that. We're good to just
Yeah, I
power
mean,
through it.
It's
we'll
fine.
power
It's
through
gonna suck either way. so,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Just do it now.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm gonna go
Brace the
through,
suck.
here, guys. Monthly financial report, questions, comments, concerns by council. Hearing none, proceeding forward. Accounts payables, questions, comments, concerns by council. Hearing none, proceeding forward. Charter review, campaign finance. Again, me and the city manager have been talking over a couple different things. One of the languages I've suggested before is, and you have to be 18 years old to make a political contribution in Taneytown. Jim, did you have any quick ones you wanted to hit
We
on?
haven't found examples of that elsewhere in the state.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can't legally. Like, I think there's a federal bar on it, but
Unless
that's
you
why I
have,
don't, that's why I don't even think you have to,
You have to like jump through hoops to, if you're under 18 and you have like.
yeah, you're
trust
supposed
fund
to
or
have trust
something.
funds and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff if you
have
want to do
it's-
donations.
It's pretty complicated.
But again, I know ethics had a different take on that, but I'm pretty sure, like, I thought federally you can't even do that. They can't contribute to political campaigns under 18, but. Yeah. I mean, I don't see why you can do who can contribute to a campaign when you can do who can run for office, right, age-wise. But just something for consideration. I know we had talked about if you're doing self-funded, whether you should even have to do a campaign account, for instance. I know that's been another topic is if you are completely self-funded, why have a campaign account? Because the campaign account's main purpose is to track expenditures coming from other people other than yourself. So that's the other one we talked about. Jim, did you have I know there were a couple different notes.
Yeah, we talked about modifying the forms to make them a little bit more instructive. We also talked about the idea of not putting the forms out on the city website, but having someone have to contact the city to obtain the forms. That would give the city clerk the opportunity to kind of walk somebody through the process and explain the forms to them. We've also talked about maybe adding a definition section. Some other municipalities have done that. We thought that could be helpful. So and if Clara wants to jump in to correct me, but it sounds like from her perspective, a lot of the questions and issues had to do with people having questions on the forms more so than the ordinance itself. So maybe modifying, I guess the point is, we may not need to do like a whole repeal and replace. We may be able to tidy up the existing ordinance and then also modify the forms so they're a little bit clearer for the candidates, and also not making them available on the website so that we have to have some contact with the prospective candidate to have the opportunity to explain things to them. And those are kind of the thoughts we had at this point. We haven't spent a tremendous amount of time on it, but those are some of the things we thought we could modify.
I'm wary on number 3 just because it feels like gatekeeping, but
Yeah, and
That's
so
another-
that's when
another
I was a
discussion.
little wary on, or again, the biggest thing there is and I get where staff's coming from on it, is that a lot of the mistakes are because they just downloaded the forms and came in to submit them the day, before, and had no contact as far as how the form should be filled out, what you should have is if you're self-funded, stuff like that. That seems to be the common occurrence.
While I suppose you could hold an expectation that someone running for public office is going to look before they leap, so to speak, and familiarize themselves with the requirements. We've seen with the last election, we had a candidate who filled out a self-funding affidavit and then accepted a donation because they didn't realize what they were filling out. And again, if there was opportunity to summarize the process for someone with a little dialogue and give them the opportunity to ask questions, of the person that's going to be regulating things or reviewing things, that from the staff perspective, that would be helpful.
MML, we went to an AI seminar together. You could also try and make an AI video, like an explainer video, have, Sean Connery or somebody explain the whole thing, do a little 5-minute whatever, and be like, here, go watch this, and it tells you what to do. It might be a fun introduction to the cities dipping their toes into AI.
or we could just cut it like normal people. I cut videos all the time, so.
But it'd be more fun to be explained, something like that.
We could each do a section.
That's right.
But even something that, we haven't had previously, but even maybe if we were to change things so that you couldn't just print the forms off and fill them out with, do it on your own. We could also develop, if we did have people come in to get them and get them from the city clerk, the clerk would have a list of things that we would be certain was covered with every candidate. So maybe we still develop that list, and if the decision is to still put everything out on the website, we put basically an instruction list or a bullet point list that clarifies things.
We have to trust that somebody who's running for an elected office has enough smarts to do what needs to be done, or else they need to face the consequences of not knowing what needs to be done. I mean, I'm just, at some point, we can't hold hands for someone that we're expecting to be a leader of the community. That's just where I'm coming from.
That's fair.
Fair, yeah.
So again, council, think on that, get any kind of feedback you guys might have, think about the stuff we talked about, any additional feedback, please get that back over to me or staff. Any additional comments, questions, concerns before I proceed forward?
What's the time frame? Is that just Monday, or is that?
We're not gonna make like a decision Monday, but we're
Okay.
gonna be trying to craft this month, so.
Okay.
Again, we've already made some marks and whatnot, we just need additional feedback.
Have a working draft at the moment, or?
Jim, can you send over some of the marks that we've made? Or I guess, the very,
Even if it's bullet
We'll try to
points of
polish
things you guys.
something up so it's more than my scribblings in the margins.
Honestly, at this point, that's fine by me, even if it's, your little scribblings on a notepad, I don't care. But it'd be cool to see what you guys have.
We'll get something out to you in the next couple days.
additional comments, questions, concerns by council before I proceed forward? Hearing none. Mountain Brook Developer Rights, skipping that. We already talked about it. Memorial Park, already talked about that. Ratification of Sheets Bond Release. Questions, comments, concerns from council?
Fairly straightforward.
Yeah,
Pretty
very
straightforward.
straightforward.
Proceeding forward, award of decarbonization study. Again, this is something we had talked about a good little bit ago.
Yep, so we applied for and received a grant. The details are in the packet for the dollar amounts. And we did contact 3 different providers, 2 local electrical firms, and the one company that made us aware of the grant opportunity to begin with. Essentially, this is going to pay for us to do energy monitoring at city facilities so that we can see if we're, if there are areas where we're wasting energy, say after hours use, if we see that things are still using a lot of energy after the office closes, and it's not something like the blower motor at the treatment plant or something that obviously has to run to keep the system going. So it's considered a decarbonization study because the ultimate goal is that it's going to reduce our energy demand. So the grant covers the amount of the proposal that's in the packet for the study. So hopefully we'll get a decision on that Monday and then, give the contractor the go-ahead. Our first report for the grant is actually due next week, so it would be nice to be able to report in there that we've awarded the bid for the installation of the monitoring equipment to move forward. So that's in a nutshell.
I understand that it's basically free because of the grant, but the whole net zero thing we should be running screaming away from. It is destroying countries right now.
Look at the UK.
Germany.
Oh yeah, the whole let's shut off all of our nuclear reactors and then have to buy our oil from Russia. Great idea.
No, they're losing all of their manufacturing base. So
Mercedes-Benz.
I'm not against us putting in a study so that we know the energy that we're doing and things of that nature. I've got huge red flags to work towards net zero because it's proving to be very hazardous all over the world right now.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns from council before I proceed?
Something else occurred to me on this decarbonization thing. The proposal that CDM has for working with our water and sewer plants could present some potential conflicts depending on the way the decarbonization study comes through. In other words, the direction that CDM takes us may be in conflict with what the carbon data analysis is. So do we need to do both of these at the same time, or can we move forward with one without moving forward with the other? I'm just afraid that if we use CDM's recommendations and then the carbon data study comes back that, well, we shouldn't do this, we got to change that, we got to do this. We've got our plans all laid out with CDM for something we don't have anymore. That's all.
It seems to me that
Just
the
a
CDM study is going to be more geared towards what is existing in state law as opposed to the decarbonization, which is going to be towards other.
I guess I understand that, and I guess
nebulous
that's
goals.
a question I have is CDM's working with our facility as it is today. What our facility be tomorrow after the carbon dating analysis could be something different, that's all.
So I'm looking at this more as I'll say an energy efficiency study. That if we can identify energy usage that's wasteful or could be curtailed, it's going to save the city money in the long run, regardless of any overarching green initiatives or whatever. If we use less electricity, our costs will go down, is the short of it. And I would imagine that as far as, the CDM Smith study, that's not going to get into the level of detail for energy usage of a specific pump or a specific process. Anything that comes out of that study is I'm not anticipating things being that drilled down to that much detail. that we would be getting into like specific design of things in the CDM Smith study. That's a much broader look at the systems overall and where we need to go, in consideration of, potential growth and the regulatory environment, and of course, environmental factors like our recharge. So I don't think that I don't think the decarbonization study is really going to have an influence on the CDM Smith piece. I mean, I can see where you would make the connection, but I think the decarbonization study is
Maybe
much
I
more focused
don't
just on
understand the
electrical consumption.
carbon dating as much as I should, that's all. Decarbonization.
I'm not,
So
the name, I think, could be off-putting to some.
really, the best way to think about this is it's a study that is essentially free to us to help us figure out ways to save money on our energy, our electricity costs.
Yes. In a nutshell, there's going to be monitoring devices put in all of our breaker boxes that's going to report through a system that has a dashboard that'll be part of this project, where we can, monitor basically everything that's going on in all of our buildings. And so we can see, what circuits and what activities are using more energy than others. Typically we find, heating and cooling and, certainly the computers, the systems use a lot of electricity too, but I suspect we'll probably find heating cooling is continuing to be a biggie for the buildings.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns by council?
Yeah, it's free money. They want us to do it. We have data.
Out ways that we can save money.
Yep.
So, that's being better stewards of our very limited financial resources. I don't know, this seems like kind of a no-brainer to me.
And it could inform us, in some changes that we might want to make to like controllers at the wastewater treatment plant. That is a tremendous consumer of electricity. So if we can identify changes that we can make there, that could result in significant savings for the city. So that'll be Monday night.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns by council? Hearing none, proceeding forward to approval of special event permit, Carroll Kennel Club Fast Cat Trials Memorial Park, September 4th through the 6th, 2026. Any additional comments, questions, concerns before I proceed forward?
I have a quick, back on the ratification of sheets bond release, why do we have to wait until Monday to do that? Why can't we just get that off our queue now?
Just
is that-
generally,
like,
we
that was
It's
vote
just
on Mondays.
It's just generally how we do the
trial,
motions and whatnot on that Monday. I mean, we can, but
I mean, does anybody have any objection to just,
Interesting
like,
lodge.
this
Can we
is like
cross
the
this
most,
off the list and
yeah,
just get
like,
it?
this is the dumbest thing, like, why let's
Are we
get it
going
off
to
the
get into
list.
any kind of procedural trouble by just doing that in a workshop? Because I'm completely for crossing some of this off our list.
Like, everybody agrees that the thing is done, everybody just wants to get it off our queues, like, why not?
I mean, we can. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Looking for a
Seconded.
second. Any additional comments, questions, concerns by council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Carries. Do you guys want to do the special event permit then? You guys just want me to knock a couple of these off? That's
Yes,
fine.
please, thank you.
Looking for a motion on the special event
So
permit.
moved.
Looking for a
Second.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns by council? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries. Monthly financial report. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns by council? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Accounts payables, look for a motion.
So moved.
Look for a second. Any additional comments, questions, concerns by council? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Carries.
I think those are the ones.
Those are all the small ones. So we already did Memorial Park expansion, CDM Smith Water and Sewer Planning Proposal. Any, Jim, did you want to touch base before I ask council?
Well, as we just touched on it briefly a few minutes ago, We haven't done an overall evaluation of our systems like this for several years. We want to look at things like fire flow and future demand. Now, the water resources element of the comprehensive plan does this to a degree, but the study with CDM Smith can identify more specific infrastructure needs. And also, we still need to do a lot of work with working through the Department of the Environment with regard to recharge acquisition and associating that with appropriation permits at our various wells. We have recharge that's been donated by the county that is just essentially sitting there because we haven't approached MDE to increase the appropriation permit with any of our wells. The thought with previous council was that we would be investing in acquiring recharge and then charging a benefit assessment fee to developments over a certain number of EDUs that would, bring more demand to the city. But we haven't worked out a process through which we can get that through the Department of the Environment effectively. And that would also be part of this study. So CDM Smith would continue to look at the effectiveness of our I&I measures and provide some additional guidance on future I&I inflow and infiltration reduction measures on the wastewater side, as well as helping us develop an approach to use with the Department of the Environment for associating that recharge with the wells and evaluating the need for an additional water storage facility and potential sites even for that could be part of the study. I might be overstepping with that. Maybe siting is not going to be. I shouldn't say that. But the need for an additional storage vessel is going to be looked at as well. So it's something we haven't done for quite a few years. We haven't been doing our monthly water allocation resolutions any longer, but I'll remind council that we only have about 30,000 gallons per day of capacity available for additional growth, whether that's commercial or residential or anything, before we can't allocate, we can't issue more building permits if we don't have the water to go along with it. So, off the top of my head, I don't know how many equivalent dwelling units, say Taco Bell is going to use, or what the other quick service restaurant that property has targeted for the second lot is going to use. But 30,000 gallons a day, right now we're not seeing a lot of growth. But if things pick up, that 30,000 gallons could go very quickly.
And
then
an
we'll be
EDU
in a
is what,
situation.
250? EDUs?
Right,
Okay.
yes. Yep,
Thank
250 gallons a day. So we really need to set a path forward, especially on the water side right now. We have the ability to pump more, but until we can get the recharge figured out, we're not going to be permitted to do that. So that would all be, and again, the study does have a lot of specifics, but.
Recharge issue?
So.
It's kind of an overall water system. And
Yes,
that's what we were talking back in
That's one of
April.
the components, and I probably spend more time talking about it than maybe I should, because for me, it's a very key issue that there's the ability to pump more is there, the aquifer can support it, the well can support it, but the recharge can't. And it's, again, we haven't wanted to go to the Department of the Environment with the donated recharge that we have, because we've really wanted it. It's not that easy to work through and get meetings with the right people. That some of you who have been around may recall that it took us over a year to work things through with our wastewater treatment plant. The fines that were being levied by MDE and negotiating that down and actually getting a face-to-face meeting with them took quite some time. The result was positive for us, but it was a very long process. So we'd like to be able to kind of do it once and really nail down the strategy and the approach, and then go to MDE one time and say, this is how we want to do it, hopefully come to agreement, and then have a process that we'll follow for growth and increased allocation permits going forward.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns by council on CDM Smith Water and Sewer Planning Proposal?
If council would like, Brian Lubenow, our project manager with CDM Smith, would be able to come down Monday night if you want him to speak to anything in the proposal.
Does council need it?
I told him to keep the night open, and if there were a lot of questions about it,
I know this
we
is
would-
something council, we had talked just a little bit about back in April as well, again, kind of this general inquiry. Council, how you guys feeling? Do you,
I mean, this is the briefing of what he'd be saying anyways, right?
basically?
Basically, yeah, I mean, the
Yeah,
proposal
I think
lays
it's
out.
gonna be pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we're good,
If
Jim.
he's gonna say exactly what's here, or the same thing, like, just
Yep.
or we can reread it to make sure.
That's
Like,
why I was thinking, I didn't want to say that. I was like, I
it's-
can read
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
on
but,
here.
like, why am I gonna waste everybody's time? We have to sit through a presentation and waste his time. That's stupid.
Yep, I think we should be good.
Glad we're in consensus.
Additional comments, questions, concerns regarding that before I proceed forward? Hearing none. I'm going to go ahead and close out the public hearing on Resolution 2026-03, Countywide Water Resource Element. Anybody in the public? Nope. Doesn't sound like we have additional comments. That public hearing is now closed. I'm now going to read the presiding officer's closing statement. On July 8th, 2026, at 9:56 p.m. at City Hall, in accordance to the Maryland Open Meetings Act, Title 10, Governmental Procedures, Subtitle 5, Meetings Section 3-305B, this meeting will be closed as closed only to consider the acquisition of real property for public purpose and matters directly related to thereto. Before a contract is awarded or bids are opened, discuss a matter directly related to a negotiating strategy or the contents of a bid or proposal if public discussion or disclosure would adversely impact the ability of the public body to participate in the competitive bidding or proposal process. The following is a list of items to be discussed: the feasibility and cost of property acquisition and award of bid to discuss architectural services bids related to property renovations. Looking for a motion?
Close.
Motion to close, or second if he got
I'll
it.
give it to next, second, Harry. Any additional comments, questions, concerns by council? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. We are heading into closed session. Let's give like a quick